I've always gotten the kick out of this mural because it's almost like it's taking these signs from stores that have been long gone and just kind of a way of immortalizing it, and I guess pass on to a future generation to show what we had. In terms of my point of references, I recognize that S pretty well because that's the old Steinberg's logo, because I was alive enough to see it in its final years before it closed down. I think like 1992, 1993, I would say. Probably a big deal at the time for doing your gross is like, hey, I'm going to be doing my Steinberg's run. What can you say? And this is another one I remember, Greenberg's. It's almost like a discount store, I would say. I have memories of my dad getting some shoes around there from time to time for like 20 bucks. Easy to do. This old sign from Plaza Saint-Hubert. What looks like a St. Hubert chicken logo. Yeah, another blast from the past. And a blast from the past is the best way to start this next edition of the Ukie Cheese Cafe. I've had a nice social weekend so far. Met up with a few friends, caught up with some family, but I thought I would take today just as a day for myself to just wander around and do a little walk along to Little Italy in Rosemont. I was around there on the weekend, but I want to kind of cover a little bit more ground, despite the fact that I'm feeling some raindrops and there's a huge chance of a thunder shower warning today. But we already know that weather, unpredictable now. I'm going to take my chance and see how much of this I can get recorded. And before we continue, I would suggest you hit that subscribe button and put the notifications on. That way when I have a new video uploaded, you're going to get notified that it's ready to watch. Now let's take a little gander around here. Café Coyote, a little place that you can get some brunch up until 3 p.m., which is typical of breakfast places. I have actually stopped off here years ago, and it's a pretty nice one. For what I remembered about it, it was around the time that I was getting first aid training from where I worked at the time. So yeah, if you've done first aid, you know what that's like. You're getting those dummies that you're to practice chest compressions and etc. Yeah, everyone needs to have them once in a while. And, ooh, Cafellini, another coffee shop I've been to before that's highly recommended. Everything I like to get was, I think it was the last few times it was super warm in Montreal, and I ended up with an iced Americano. Yeah, as you can see, I've been getting hooked on Americanos these days. I just love it. It's like getting drip coffee, but with an espresso quality. Plaza Saint-Hubert once again. Now, I've come here a lot in my youth. A few times, like if I was waiting for my sister to do her first communion practice, or times if I walk around here, because this is around the time we were also on the hunt for used video games. And used to be a lot more stores of those back in the day around here. Now, can't really say there's too much of it, but there are some unique boutiques and some nice stuff. And as you can see by here, Plaza Saint-Hubert is around 4 blocks long, starting from around Bellechasse further south, up into Jean Talon Street. And it's mostly an outdoor promenade. As for the type of stores you got, well, there's a lot of nice cafes, a lot of nice restaurants around here, some microbrewery stuff. Yep, the microbrewery scene has really grown over the years. You almost wouldn't have seen that like 20 years ago. Very nice. I don't know the name of this restaurant, actually. Tenorio's. The only thing that caught my eye is that they actually have ceviche on the menu, which is a pretty awesome dish. What you do is you usually take a bit of white fish, you make it raw, but the idea with that is that you just add some lemon juice in there, and that with some salt is supposed to cure it up or kind of cook it in a way. And that's essentially how you make fish tartare. It's one of those kind of dishes, and you can have it with like some bread. I know there's probably other ingredients I'm missing. Luckily, I have a friend who's from Argentina, so one of these days I'm gonna have to ask her for a recipe and see if I can whip it up on the channel eventually. Yep, always looking for new ideas. Comptoir de Curiosité, or translated into English for any of you outside of the region, the Curiosity Counter. What is this supposed to be? Cocktails, stuff to eat. Oh, you could actually get baba ganoush over here. Ah, and there's also a pretty decent scotch selection. So yeah, it seems like it's one of those kind of bars. I might have to stop here for a drink one day. Now, I've probably mentioned this about living in St. Hubert for a while, where if you've been there for so long, you can kind of see how the neighborhood had changed over the years or even over the decades. And even though I haven't come back to Rosemont as much over the years, it's someplace I visited frequently as a kid. Came enough times I was able to see what it was like, and I could tell you that the vibe had changed quite a bit. The east part of Rosemont, where the Ukrainian community was located, does have a lot more terraces now and cute restos, cafes, and bars, which almost would have been unheard of back in the day. And my brother was doing a walk around there. He mentioned there's a lot more terraces more than he remembered. And I had to point out that that's just part of the trends that's going on now. Everyone seems to have it, I suppose. But hey, if you could get good business out of it, then go for it. More people sitting outside who want to do that and grab a drink, that's good for them. And at this point, after the pandemic is hopefully coming to an end, these businesses will need what they can to get back on their feet. It's been tough for them. A restaurant that proclaimed itself to be the king of smoked meats. I should probably put them up to the test, and if they fail, I'm gonna demand my meals free. Actually, one kind of business that I remember in the day that I would find that still seems to be around, amazingly enough considering all the circumstances we've been dealing with, are these fancy dress shops. Like places you could buy wedding dresses, first communion dresses, and easy, first communion dresses and etc. here. So I remember they were apparently supposed to be pricey, so not exactly something I would have looked into. Then again, I don't really need a wedding dress for myself for obvious reasons. But yeah, that kind of business was around here for a lot, and they still seem to be around. Even further down is like some sex shops and lingerie shops. I wonder if that business goes hand in hand. You start off with your wedding dress for what you want to do with the family, the celebration with them and your friends, and then you go to the lingerie shop for what you want to show off on your honeymoon. Yep, that's some aged cheddar for you right there, people. Well, there is another restaurant I remember from my childhood here that a few spots still exist. Nichols Delicatessen, or it used to be like, actually it probably still is like that, smoked meat place. But back in the day, I think the vibe that they were going for, it was like supposed to be a recreation of a 50s diner based on the decor that they used. And one of the selling points was if you buy one plate of the smoked meat, you get the second one for a nickel. Hence the name of it. Whether the quality of the sandwich was good, I want to say that the meat was kind of chewy back then. Of course, I'm looking at it from 1994 standards versus now, so probably had changed over time. Still, if you want quality smoked meat, you always could go to Reuben's, Dunn's, and Schwartz's as well. But I've already talked about that numerous times. Huh, interesting. I think when I did my first Rosemont walk, I do remember there was some kind of a Colombian festival with some dancing that was going on. And again, I'm gonna keep promoting it because I'm still proud of that one. Click on the link on the top right corner to watch it again. But that was actually one thing that caught my attention, is that I know like the Latin district is around the Saint Denis area, just kind of within downtown. And you got Little Portugal along Saint Laurent. And I think around Rachel. I don't know if there's like a community around here, but the fact that I still see these, butchered myself. The fact I still see this around tells me there is something around here. Yeah, this is something that caught my attention on my walks I came around here, because it gives me memories of Labyrinth. If you recall, around St. Catherine, there used to be that store, Labyrinth, which you were able to get some rock t-shirts, a whole bunch of rock paraphernalia, a variety of rolling paper too, bongs. So yeah, it's like if you're gonna go into rock culture, you kind of know what to expect in these kind of stores. But I like this, especially from the outside, because of some posters. I do remember seeing one from the game Sonic Triple Trouble, something that was on the Game Gear if you're all video game fans back in the day. There was even a recreation of the Garden of Earthly Delights. I wouldn't be able to tell you who painted that originally, but I did see that at the Prado when I was in Spain like many years ago. And that was pretty awesome to see. And yeah, what better way to take a religious imagery and then give it a nice little twist. Yeah, if you had all your weed burning on you, you'd be pissed off too. There we go. I made my way to the end of the plaza, right up until Jean Talon Street. And funny enough, when I first did the Rosemont walk, this is actually where I first ended up. But now I feel like I'm going back here to get more towards the Jean Talon Market. Actually, I might stay out for a little later, mostly because I'm kind of feeling a bit peckish, and I feel like I kind of need something to eat. Luckily, if I want to have something Italian, there's no shortage of restaurants here, so something's going to catch my attention. Just a matter of what. Continue my walk along Jean Talon, and I think I'm going to get to Saint Laurent Boulevard, because why not? It always keeps being drawn back, but I'm coming from a different angle. And oh yeah, this is a good time to talk about this too. Juliette et Chocolat. It's a pretty good chocolate chain slash ice cream place that, if you enjoy indulging in both together, highly recommended. Now, here's the thing about it. You could go to your Dairy Queen or most ice cream shops and then get your ice cream dipped in like a shell of chocolate or caramel, but because Juliette et Chocolat makes their own chocolate, that's what they're mostly known for, and they have like a good 12 different types of chocolate. You can get stuff like your basic milk chocolate, white chocolate, dark chocolate, and other varieties like orange chocolate, a minted chocolate, and etc. So it's a good variety. The catch for that is, don't have a meal before or after it, because when you get the chocolate on that, you're talking about the same thickness as if you had a chocolate bar just slapped on right onto the ice cream. So it could be pretty heavy. I used to get the medium, occasionally large, but sometimes I go for small because I think, yeah, if I go for anything bigger, I'm going to be feeling this for a while. And I don't want to give myself a stomach ache. Not that way. But yeah, if you see that, it's recommended. And I do have one in my area too. Kitchen, gallery, restaurant, and bar. Kind of an odd juxtaposition of names you can give this thing. Fountains and many rose bushes. Such a beautiful sight. Now, I've made my way onto Saint Laurent once again, so I'm going to be choosing my direction here. To give you an idea, maybe, if I was to go north, like maybe around this area, I would be heading more towards Jarry Park, and even further north would be the garment district around Chabanel Street, which, if you recall in episode 101, that top right corner here, I did make mention of that because I do have an aunt that I think still works there. But I remember visiting her from time to time because she worked at a clothing shop at that moment, and also because we used to get some of those clothes for Christmas time. Easy gifts to give to kids. But I'm going to be going south instead, more towards other parts of Little Italy that I've covered in my previous videos, because there's a lot more interesting stuff to see down there. They say beer is on the sign. They say I got bar à bière maison. I can't tell you if it's a microbrewer that they got here, but it did catch my eye when I first came back here on an evening in October, and I thought, wow, there's a lot more beer places than I thought. So it almost feels like eventually I should come back, find out they got microbrews, and maybe do a pub crawl around the area. You never know one day. Made my way further down to an area that's pretty familiar for me. I used to walk to the Marché Jean Talon and then go down Mozart Street to get into Saint Laurent for the heck of it for times. Yeah, some streets named after composers around here, and actually I also go a little bit further down, I would get to Dante Street. So imagine this, you could go from one part of the street that you're going to be indulging 1 minute in your love of classical music, and then the next thing you know, you're probably going to be exploring the 7 depths of hell. I think there's 7 depths of it. What is it with the number 7 and all that? 7 stars, the 7 Dragon Balls, the 7 Seas of Rye? I don't know. Well, if you live around the area, then Milano's needs no introduction for you. But in case you're not from here, it's just one of those grocery stores that's pretty well known if you live in Little Italy, and it's been around for a long, long time. almost like Bonanza if you lived around the East End in St. Leonard. No, that's not what I meant. Hear the word Bonanza, next thing you know, you're hearing the theme from the old show. But who knows, maybe I could use it as a gag in a future episode, because I do have memories of going to the East End when I was a kid for different reasons. But it's pretty fun for me. Oh yeah, another neat spot that I went to once was Café Italia. I was out for like a dinner on a Sunday night a while back, and I had some time to kill, so I stopped off here to get an espresso. Funny enough, back then, it was still one of those places that only accepted cash for payment. But hey, good thing I had some loose change on me and I was able to indulge in that. Yeah, I should definitely get some shelter and find something to eat because I'm really starting to get wet. Well, I'm still on Dante Street and I see a restaurant that's called Inferno. Okay, this is just too awesome. I gotta go there, find out if it's open, and then sit down, because man, that is just an appropriate name for a restaurant given where I am. And it looks like it's taped off and closed. The crowd I see is just people standing around having a drink and just sipping on the coffee and smoking. Well, I'm going for a plan B instead. Well, one beauty about being around here is that if you get in the mood for pizza, there's no shortage of pizzerias you can find, and especially the kind here that's made in a wood oven, which is all, in my opinion, or if you ask anyone else, it's the best kind of pizza you can make. Now, this joint that I'm in is called Pizzeria Gemma. Pretty nice, and I'm still on Dante's street, so I'm still within the Inferno. But I'm also doing something different today too. I am going for a cocktail. I know, right? You see me with a glass of wine earlier in the day, and you see me with an Aperol Spritz. Well, I figured if I'm going to be doing an Italian meal, I may as well go for Italy's drink. Now, an Aperol Spritz is very simple. You just take a little bit of Aperol, a little bit of Prosecco, which I believe is like a dry type of wine that you find in Italy, and then you mix some soda in there too. And some people, depending on your taste, you can add a bit of orange, like I have here, or some lemon juice in it. But it all really depends on your style of wine, and especially your taste in liquors. You wouldn't necessarily put the lemon juice in there if you don't like it too sweet. But if you want something just slightly sugary, that's what you put. It's pretty refreshing. And if you remember when I was in Italy back in 2019, in fact, click on the link on the top right corner and you'll find out again. One thing I always felt was, if I'm going to be there, I have to have an Aperol Spritz. There's no question about it. The good stuff. And my lunch has just arrived, so I want to do something on the menu that I haven't done in ages, or try something different, and I went with what was called the Ruliano over here, as you're able to see. Now, what caught my eye was, they say they had some prosciutto on here, which is a no-brainer because you have to have some kind of pork on a pizza, but they included also some melted leek, which if you had asked me in the years ago, I never would have guessed until now that leek was an ingredient on pizza, so that's something different I wanted to taste. And it contains taleggio cheese, I believe. I actually didn't know what that was until I had to Google it, but essentially, it's a type of cheese that's soft, ripened. It does have a little bit of an aroma to it, but apparently when you taste it, it's very mild. So it's not like some of those stronger cheeses you would find that if it smells pretty strong, it's going to taste strong. It's like the polar opposite. Now, I'm going to give this a taste test, and we'll see what this is like. So leek, make sure I get some prosciutto in here. Now that is pretty amazing. And one thing I kind of found that's pretty unique about the prosciutto, it's not like sliced prosciutto. It kind of has a bit of a stringy kind of texture, but mostly like when you have pulled pork. So it does give it a unique taste. And the cheese isn't too overpowering also. And based on the sign here, it says Pizzeria Napolitana. It's like the Naples style pizza. My understanding is that Naples is actually where pizza was invented back in the day. And I feel like there's a lot of pizzerias I've been to with a thin crust, with a thick, actually a thin dough, thicker crust. That's their style. And that's what a lot of these pizzerias I've been to have tried to replicate. And funny enough, I remember being in Rome, and most of those pizzas were thin dough on the bottom, but also a thin crust, almost very bread-like. So it's pretty interesting to think that you go to each different region, and each of the pizzas are done in a different way, or even with a different sauce. All around awesomeness, though. Cannot complain. Okay, I'm gonna have to give that place 2 thumbs up because it was just plain awesome in terms of pizza. Once again, Naples style, a new type of cheese I never knew existed, leek, which I never thought would be a good topping, and prosciutto. But looking at it now, I think what they had done was they took pork tenderloin, cured it up a bit and baked it, because then that gave it like the reddish texture you see with the prosciutto, and then pulled it apart like pulled pork, and that's why it felt a little stringy. It was super satisfying. I'm telling you, there's a certain art to getting a wood-burn wood stove pizza done just right. I know the pizza that I make at home is almost like restaurant quality, but sometimes you just can't beat a restaurant like this. Now, I'm making my way back onto Saint Laurent, and I think I'm gonna get some kind of a dessert for myself, because I do have an idea that I could show you off that I discovered back in November, which I didn't realize you could even do. Let's see if the place is open for this. I have an idea for a song, but I know it's not Saturday, it's Sunday, but for all intents and purposes, we'll pretend it's Saturday. Hit it. Beautiful. Can't really beat ice cream in the park. Such a lovely thing. But my memories were kind of off because I wanted to show off something else originally. What I got here is like some French vanilla gelato. Gelato is basically like Italian style ice cream. I don't know what the difference is, but it's definitely high quality stuff. But what I wanted to show off was what I thought was a Café crema. Obviously that's an iced coffee, but it's not exactly what I wanted to. I asked them and turns out it's an affogato. So what an affogato is just, you take a bit of ice cream and then you add like 1 shot of espresso into it, which sinks to the bottom, and it gives it like a nice vanilla / coffee kind of flavor. It's like a way to get some kind of a boost without having to go with the coffee. I guess the best analogy I could think of is, think of it like having a latte, but replace your whipped milk with some gelato or ice cream, and you got a similar idea. But worst case, I'll just find a coffee shop and get something else along the way, because there's no shortage of coffee places. It's like me remembering Italy. Everybody takes their coffee seriously there. You'll find plenty of them. I love these mini cones. Does anyone remember when you were a kid? You go to the grocery store and you get the multi-pack of them that are all multicolors. Your pink, your green, your blue ones. I found them kind of neat. Now that was pretty tasty stuff. I know there was a bit of black in there, but I think with this French vanilla, they might have had little chunks or little pieces of vanilla bean in there, and that's kind of what gives it a unique flavor. Pretty good stuff, satisfying for being outdoors. I still feel drizzle every now and then, but truth be told, I don't think it's heavy enough that it's going to be a thunder shower. So once again, the weather's unpredictable. Now, I need to go find something else. I was thinking of a coffee, but I feel like a brew will be in a good order instead. There's Saint Houblon over here. The thing is that if I really wanted to go there, I have no shortage of other locations to check out. Because I know they got one on Saint Denis and also around the Saint Bruno Mall, which is not far from where I live. So I could go there one day. Oh yeah, I remember back when I did my walk on top of Mount Royal, I thought at first that there was a Saint Houblon around Côte des Neiges, but that was my mistake. Nevertheless, time to go look around. Now, what should I believe in? Wait. I don't know if I should listen to a preacher to go to a bar, or maybe his offspring, because then I could say the only one that could move me was the son of a preacher man.
Billy Ray was a preacher's son, and when his daddy would visit, he'd come along. When they gathered around and started talking, Cousin Billy would take me walking. Out through the backyard we go walking. Then he looked into my eyes. Lord knows to my surprise, the only one who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man. The only boy who could ever teach me was the son of a preacher man. Yes, he was. He was. Yes, he was. Being good isn't always easy, no matter how hard I try. When he started sweet talking to me, he'd come and tell me everything is alright. He'd kiss and tell me everything is alright. Can I get away again tonight? The only one who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man. The only one who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man.
Super delicious. So I actually got lucky in this case, mostly because I'd never been to the terrace over here. I've been into the bar like a handful of times, both with friends and on my own. But this terrace, it's beautiful. It's like if you decked out your backyard with a nice wooden deck, fence, covered it with a whole bunch of trees, and you get lovely shade. And with some LED lights around here, I can also imagine that it's super cozy at nighttime. So maybe I should come back on an evening one of these days. Now, I did come here in the past, and you probably remember that from a short that I did back in March when I was finishing off my vacation. So I'm doing the same round that I had. The Catnip New England IPA. Good stuff, but it's also a 7%er, and from what I've seen, 7% and onwards, you can kind of taste the strength in the ales. So it's good to have, just don't over-abuse yourself, especially not 7% IPAs. It's a lovely thing. Just in case you don't remember that last little video, one of the draws to Vices and Verses, the sheer selection of them, and it's a bit like with St. Buck, where you can get a lot of them on tap that are available, but St. Buck, it's mostly their own stuff that they brew on the spot. This over here is a huge variety of Quebec beers and ciders. Like, you're looking at maybe a good 40 of them, and from all around, all sorts of styles, all sorts of strengths, so it kind of caters to every single taste you have out there. It's funny enough, I was talking with a friend of mine a while back, and he did say a pretty good point. There's a beer for everybody out there, and I can kind of see where he's coming from. You may not like the hoppiness of the IPA, but you might like the chocolate or coffee flavor of a stout, maybe the sweet caramel flavor of an amber or a pale ale. You know, there's something for everyone. That's what I've learned. That's why I always stick to New England IPAs, because I like the tropical hoppiness. And this is starting to run a little bit low, so maybe in a few minutes I'll go for a next round. Yep, that was a really tasty IPA, but I figured I should do one more round before I'm ready to go, and I'm not going to do another IPA right now. I want to go for something lighter, and this is one recommendation they gave me. It's a Kolsch, which I guess is the style of a blonde. Full disclosure, ask me what the difference is between a lager, a pilsner, or a Kolsch. I would not be able to tell you because I'm not as well versed in that. But I got it because I know the brewer, Les Grands Bois. And my first time that I experienced that was over at Nick's Bistro. That's like around the corner of St. Catherine and Blurry Street over in downtown. And that was actually the first place I ever tried beef tartare in my life. They had a pretty good selection of beers there, and one of them was Super Pause, which is an IPA. That was maybe around the 5% range, so not too strong. And funny enough, another one they had on tap was La Fin du Monde from Unibrew. That one, I don't see very often on tap, but when I do, it's like, okay, this is something special. Because again, as I mentioned before, that's one that seems to be pretty well renowned, whether you're going the rest of Canada, even in the US, or even around the world. There's just something about that one that has like a lot of acclaim. It's a good one, but again, Fin du Monde is 9%, so you don't want to pound that like you pound a bunch of Coors Light. Quite good. Does seem to be a slight bitterness in this, which I've noticed on a couple of Vienna lagers and maybe Czech lagers. Either way, it's a satisfying finish to my brewing. And weirdly enough, I keep getting some raindrops as well. It's like, it doesn't know if it wants to rain or not. So indecisive. Now that was a pretty nice afternoon spent around Little Italy, and while I could stick around a little bit, I'm realizing that I'm not as young as I used to be, and the meal combined with the ice cream and the brews all together means I'm starting to feel it, and I think I should probably walk it off to try to digest a little bit before I could get home and enjoy some supper, eventually. But what I do have room for is maybe a nice coffee, and I'm not talking about drip coffee like you get at Tim Hortons. That's like for another time. I'm in Little Italy. There's no shortage of quality coffee shops around here, and I'm sure I'm gonna find something. I am back on Dante Street, so I might be able to find one around here, and maybe get something to wake me up before I start to feel all woolly bully. Not quite accurate, but okay. Here I wasn't sure if I'd be making it to the Jean Talon Market, but I decided why not? Stick around, look around, and of course, no shortage of coffee shops I can head to. I decided to go a little bit indoors, mostly because as I got over here, it started to rain like they predicted, and I didn't want to get caught in it and get soaked while I'm recording. But I thought this is the perfect place to go get a coffee for myself, a nice espresso, or I should say an allongé. So I've already explained what an Americano is, which is like taking a shot of espresso and fill it up so it's kind of like a cup of drip coffee. If you're going to be doing an allongé, it's basically like asking for a short or a tall espresso. Your short is going to be just one shot of espresso put in. Your tall is going to be a bit watered down a little bit just to make it a tall one, like 2 shots. Basically like 2 shots of espresso without having the 2 shots. If I'm at home, I always do double shots because that's just the way I am. And if I'm out and about, allongé is a nice way to kind of spread it out. And the location I'm in is the Café du Marché. Now, before I was getting into independent coffee shops, I knew that if I was to come to the Jean Talon Market, that I'm always going to be getting, you know, one of these coffees over here. There's a couple of independent ones like this, the Café Saint-Henri and such like that. Because I always figured I could get Tim Hortons near home, I could get Starbucks, I could get the Mad Clown Parlor if I wanted to, and the last thing I needed is to come all the way here for something I could get close to home. There's no shortage of the independent small ones, and they do have a like cozy atmosphere. In fact, where I am right now, if I was to set this up, shows, yeah, you get a nice view of the market while you're looking out from here, and some of the terrace is actually covered by an awning, so you're kind of lucky if you manage to get that kind of a spot. Then you're protected by the rain without getting too soaking wet. Hopefully, of course. I do remember reading years ago about a Starbucks that was going to be opening up around here. Actually, it did open up, but then it closed down, and people were in an uproar because of the location. It seems like you don't need Starbucks at the market because you got so many small shops. I get it. It's kind of killing the vibe. You don't need it at all. So I'm just going to enjoy this, and I'll probably do a quick walk around the market while I'm here, and maybe do that to wrap up the vlog. So there's still a few raindrops, but I figured it's not a big deal. I'm just going to keep walking around. So one of my main favorite things to do when I was coming up here and visiting the market was checking the flower and the veggie section, because one thing is certain, you can get some decent selection at Renault Depot, Canadian Tire, but some of the stuff you find over here is stuff that you can't really see elsewhere. This is, for a while, one of the only places I could pick up Moroccan mint for myself, which I tried once, I think in my HMV days at a place near Concordia, and Moroccan mint is actually stronger than most other mints out there. They even had some good Quebec garlic to grow, other kinds of flowers like those phantom petunias. You know, there's a lot of variety, and that's why I like to come here. And I was lucky that I found another spot near my house that does have a similar selection, so pretty good stuff. But I still like to come here because this place is pretty lively. Something else I was kind of curious to see when I was walking here was about the free samples, because I was actually thrilled about that when I was a kid. To come here, they have all the variety of fruits and vegetables, and you could just take a sample of it to see what it's like, or in my case, get like a snack that didn't cost anything. But I feel like because of the pandemic, that's one thing that they kind of got rid of, which is pretty much a shame, because there was some good stuff you could get. Actually, what I'm saying, you can still get it, you just can't taste it on its own. Yeah. And another reason I came here a while back was when I was getting that horseradish, because I wanted to make some for a while, and it's kind of hard to come by unless you come at around spring. But luckily enough, they had stocks of it here. I picked one up thinking, when am I going to get this again until next year? And the only way I do see you can get horseradish outside of spring is if you get it powdered up in your spice section. I don't know how good it would be, but I think I would have to figure that out myself and maybe use it for a future episode. Now this is bringing back memories of Rosemont Wander #1, because before I went around trying to locate the Ukrainian section, I did stop off here to have a bit of calamari and just some nibbles before I headed on out. It's one of those that I saw countless times when I was walking, and I never actually bothered to stop in there until that day. I'm kind of grateful that I did that, and it was tasty stuff. Eventually I'll try to hit a few other spots around here, if time permits.
What a fool I've been. I wish that it would go and let me cry in vain, and let me be alone again. The only girl I care about has gone away, looking for a brand new start. But little does she know that...
Ah yes, Ukie. The Montreal Expos may not have existed for decades, but the mascot still lives on. He still does a lot of events around here, and I remember one time at HMV, I forget the reasoning for it, and he was parading around and taking pictures with some of the staff and some of the customers. I know that photo ended up on Facebook on our group, and someone was as smart as and asked, "We sell Ukie now?" And then someone said, "We kind of cleaned out the shelf room and found him in there." Yeah, funny stuff. And it's really kind of starting to rain finally. All this time during the day, they kept saying it's going to rain, it's going to thunder, and nothing was coming. And now it finally showed up. So my thought process then is I was going to take a little detour back at Plaza Saint-Hubert, like going back where I started to get some shelter from the storm. And no, I'm not talking about the Bob Dylan song. I like it, but I know Bob Dylan's not for everyone. Now, and this is going to give me a little bit of cover until I get to the metro and start to head on home. I've had my espresso. But maybe if I'm lucky enough, I'll get one more along the way home just to give me an energy boost, and we'll see what happens. But until then, thanks for watching this latest edition of the Wandering Ukie Chiefs Café. And if you like what you see, sign please. Yeah, sorry about that. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button below and give me a thumbs up if you enjoy my food and drinking antics. And be sure to leave a comment in case you have any other suggestions for a future segment, whether it's a restaurant or a drink to try, maybe an area of Montreal to wander around, or just a general recipe you want to whip from start to finish, let me know. Till then, enjoy and have safe travels. Assuming you're traveling somewhere, by plane, by boat, maybe by magic carpet ride, anything's possible in this day and age.